Being emperor is not easy for Lu Qing. Not only is she the first female emperor of Daliao, but her complex background alone is enough for those stubborn old ministers to complain about for a lifetime. Her mother married 2 emperors, a father and son duo. She was born after her mother married the 2nd emperor. Her father doted on her mother, dispersing his harem in his later years for her, and ultimately passed the throne to Lu Qing, a mere princess, against everyone's objections. "You are the only daughter of me and your mother. I will give you the best things," her father told Lu Qing when he left with her mother. Lu Qing was only 15 then. However, 5 years have passed, and Lu Qing still hasn't discovered why her father considered this throne the best thing. Not to mention best, she couldn't even find a single good aspect about it. For an ordinary family, a 20-year-old woman would be managing her household, loving her husband, and living a peaceful life. But what about her? "I am lonely," Lu Qing mentioned in court again today about her desire to select male concubines, sparking discontent among the old ministers. "Your Majesty, just last month, you had a batch of handsome men sent to the palace for selection. Why again?" The boldest speaker was Lord Zhua. "Your Majesty, there are already hundreds of men in your harem. You must not indulge in pleasures, or you will earn a reputation for being licentious." Lu Qing frowned slightly, her right hand tracing the patterns on the dragon throne. Listen to that. He dared to use the word licentious right to her face. It seemed she had been too lenient with them over the years. "But Lu Qing took a deep breath, am truly lonely. Though there are thousands of men in the harem, not one is a confidant. My heart feels empty." This was true. She had many male concubines, but they were all pretty faces sent by the ministers, lacking the interesting souls she desired. The court's discussions grew louder, but Li Song, who had been standing in the front row, remained silent. "What does General Li think?" Lu Qing had been watching him. "Forgive me, Your Majesty, I was distracted." Li Song's face was calm. "The cats at my house have been noisy during mating season, keeping me up last night. I was just thinking I should find a skilled veterinarian to neuter all of them, male and female." "Neuter all of them, male and female." Lu Qing's scalp tingled upon hearing these last words. Li Song looked up at her with a faint, ambiguous smile, making her feel there was more to his words. "Ahem, it's getting late. Let's discuss this matter later." Lu Qing lifted her dragon robe and hurriedly left the court. The entire court knows that His Majesty slept with General Li after getting drunk. They also know that His Majesty didn't take responsibility for it. You could see General Li's resentment from his daily cold expression, feeling aggrieved about being slept with for nothing. So, while His Majesty is adequate in many areas, in that aspect, she's quite irresponsible, the type to lift her skirts and leave. "Your Majesty, General Li requests an audience." Eunuch she informed Lu Qing, who was playing with her pet bird right after court. Before the words faded, Li Song's voice sounded from behind Lu Qing. "Your Majesty," he greeted her with a perfunctory bow as she turned around. "I have something important to discuss." "Speak, General Li." Lu Qing started to smile, but was interrupted by her pet parrot. "General Li has great stamina." "Great stamina. Great stamina." The parrot strutted back and forth on its perch, chanting upon seeing Li Song. "That damn bird. Shut up." Lu Qing's face turned bright red as she gestured for Eunuch she to take the parrot away. Once the room was left with only Lu Qing and Li Song, he looked at her flushed face and said calmly, "It seems what Your Majesty forgets, the parrot remembers." They were both adults. Li Song felt no embarrassment. Since Lu Qing pretended to forget the night she dragged him to her bed while drunk, he had to remind her. He recalled how she took advantage of him with her drunken strength. Initially, he was passive, but soon his masculine instincts and strength turned passivity into dominance. When their minds were clouded, Lu Qing, sweating and clinging to his shoulders, half-pleadingly sighed, "General Li, such stamina." Who knew the parrot would pick up that particular phrase? That... Lu Qing's face turned even redder as fragments of that night resurfaced. "General Li, quickly tell me the important matter you wish to discuss." Li Song paused, observing her for a moment before speaking slowly. The southern barbarians have been frequently harassing our people, invading our lands. I request to go to the southern border and drive them back." Hearing this, Lu Qing was stunned, her delicate brows furrowing. "If I grant you permission, when do you plan to leave?" "Immediately." Li Cong's voice was resolute. "Let me think about it." Lu Qing spoke slowly, but she was very reluctant from the moment he mentioned this. The southern border? Just thinking about sending Li Cong to such a tumultuous and dangerous place made her inexplicably resistant. Seeing her hesitant expression, Li Cong smirked and said, "If your majesty worries about my loneliness in the distant south, you needn't. I believe my appearance can help me find a confidant there." How coincidental, Lu Qing had also mentioned wanting to find a confidant in court that morning. Seeing that Li Cong was determined to go, even planning to find a confidant at the border, Lu Qing's temper flared. "I don't agree. You're not allowed to go anywhere." She leapt forward, grabbing his collar. It was rumored that His Majesty had slept with General Li again. And it was in broad daylight, with the sun shining right above. TSK, poor General Li. A few old ministers gossiped before the morning court session. "I am not feeling well today. If you have any matters, speak quickly," Lu Qing said as she walked in, rubbing her forehead, avoiding eye contact with everyone, especially Li Cong, who had been pushed onto her bed again just yesterday. It was strange, she hadn't even been drinking. Yet, when he annoyed her, she couldn't control herself and had to shut him up. She was utterly embarrassed. Lord Zua, who had watched Lu Qing grow up and understood her well, glanced at the spot where Li Cong usually stood during court and spoke up. "I have a matter to report. General Li's efforts in going to the southern border to drive out the invaders is admirable. I request that your majesty reward General Li." Li Cong went to the southern border? Lu Qing raised her head, looking at the court, only to notice Li Cong's absence. The scene from yesterday was still fresh in her mind. In broad daylight, they were lying in her bed. He had pulled away the blanket she was using to cover her head in embarrassment after their intimacy and asked her with piercing eyes, "Your Majesty, what exactly do you take me, Li Cong, for?" A good subject, Lu Qing had swallowed nervously under his gaze. Just a good subject? He had leaned closer, his voice dropping to a low murmur. Even the best subject shouldn't be doing such physically demanding tasks. Then, a good general. Lu Qing had hidden her face under the blanket again. She had then heard him getting dressed, and when she peeked out, he was leaving with a cold expression, as if he was upset with someone. It seemed Li Cong's anger had reached its peak, and he had taken his troops to the south without her consent, overnight. Lu Qing descended from the throne in a daze, feeling somewhat dejected. She felt a vague sense of guilt about the whole situation, but couldn't quite pinpoint why. 2 months later, the southern border reported a swift victory under Li Cong's command. The news arrived at night while Lu Qing was enjoying the evening breeze and listening to music at the residence of Mr. Qin Li, one of her favored courtiers. Upon receiving the report from eunuch Shi, Lu Qing sighed unconsciously while holding it. Qin Li, perceptive as always, asked, "Your Majesty, why do you sigh when the battle is won?" "Mr. Qin, why is it that despite having so many men in my harem, I still feel unsatisfied?" Lu Qing, as the first female emperor, had always been unsure what to call the men in her harem, so she respectfully referred to them as Mr. 3 palaces and 6 courtyards. Qin Li laughed. "Your Majesty has never had such a harem. You merely have many gentlemen like me, composing music and poetry for you." Indeed, though Lu Qing's harem was filled with men, she had never truly favored any of them. She always felt something was missing when facing them. Something was missing, like the feeling she had when she saw Li Cong, her heart pounding erratically, a mix of timidity and impulsiveness. The problem was, of all people, she had to fall for her minister, Li Cong. "My daughter, you will be the Emperor of Daliao from now on. I bestow this kingdom upon you and must give you some advice." Her father's earnest words often echoed in her ears. "Power and affection. If you must bestow them, you can only give one, never both." History had shown that many power struggles and usurpations occurred because emperors bestowed both power and affection on the same person. Lu Qing remembered these words well. Li Song was her great general, and she had given him power. Therefore, she should not and could not give him anything else. I'm tired. I'll be leaving now. Lu Qing, feeling troubled, rose to return to her chambers. Your Majesty, Chun-Li called out, deciding to speak his mind. The 3 palaces and 6 courtyards you seek are actually in your grasp. Lu Qing looked at her hand, clutching the victory report, but remained silent. Your Majesty once told me that should you meet your true love and no longer wish to stay in the palace, you would leave of your own accord. If you can grant others such freedom, why not grant it to yourself? Chun-Li said boldly. The figure in the dragon robe stood still for a moment, then slowly turned, her eyes deep and contemplative. Mr. Qin, today I find you to be a true gem. I am so fond of you that I do not wish to ever let you go, Lu Qing said, her voice filled with a mix of emotion and determination. General, there's news from the capital. Her Majesty plans to establish an Empress consort, and it will be none other than Chun-Li, the second son of Minister Qin, who was sent to the palace a year ago. Li Song, practicing swordsmanship in the camp's training ground, immediately felt a surge of anger. The sword in his hand cut through the crisp autumn air with increased ferocity. Before he could finish his set of sword techniques, another messenger arrived, this time bearing a message from Lu Qing. Her Majesty says that she is about to celebrate a great joy and thinks General Li should return to share in the happiness. However, considering the importance of your presence at the border, she does not wish to pull you away from the people. Therefore, she has sent 10 chests of jewels as a reward. With a loud clang, Li Song sheathed his sword, his face darkening. Very good, he muttered as he flung his sleeve and walked away. Her Majesty is truly considerate. 10 chests of jewels. Lu Qing might as well issue an imperial edict, writing in bold characters, I am buying General Li's loyalty. Shen Li. Li Song knew Lu Qing had never truly favored anyone in her harem, but the thought of Chun-Li suddenly rising to such a high position made him seethe with jealousy. Moreover, Chun-Li had once been a close friend of his in their youth. After Li Song joined the military, Chun-Li was sent to the palace by his father. She doesn't want me to return? Well, I'll return whether she likes it or not. Determined, Li Song made up his mind to head back to the capital, regardless of Lu Qing's wishes. With only a month remaining until the Empress consort ceremony, news arrived that Li Song had been ambushed and captured by Man People on his way back to the capital. His whereabouts were unknown. Lu Qing's pen slipped, making a crooked line on the document. That General Li, always so impulsive. Even if he was eager to come back and congratulate your Majesty, the Man People, having been bested by him, would be waiting for an opportunity to retaliate the moment he left the camp. Eunuch Shi chirped in his high-pitched voice. The Man People's skirmishes are just a surface issue. Li Song's temporary suppression is not a long-term solution. Lu Qing set down her pen, speaking slowly. Now that they've captured Li Song, my great general, I must thoroughly subdue them to ensure they are completely subdued. During her father's reign, the southern Man People had been a lingering threat. The consolidation of their territory into Daliao was a matter of timing. Now, with the Man People capturing Li Song, Lu Qing had a reason to face the world, and thus had the perfect timing. She immediately summoned her ministers to discuss sending a large force to the south, and the meeting extended late into the night. I've wanted to say this from the beginning. Ministers were addressed Lu Qing. Your Majesty's plan to conquer the Man People is justifiable. But from start to finish, there hasn't been a word about rescuing General Li. I feel truly sorry for him. Ministers had once been a mentor to both Li Song and Lu Qing. He could sense their underlying connection. Ministers Lu Qing replied with an understanding expression, I will rescue Li Song if I can. But dealing with the Man People is the priority. Seeing he had more to say, Lu Qing waved her hand dismissively, feigning a headache. Let's adjourn for now. I'm feeling weary. Eunuch Shi, have Minister Chen's son come in and play a tune to soothe my headache. After Chun-Li entered, he remained at a distance, observing Lu Qing. "Why does the gentleman look at me like that?" Lu Qing asked. "I am pondering," Chun-Li said. "Your Majesty, despite being a woman, your strategic acumen, decisiveness, and execution rival any man. It reminds me of how you handled my father." Chun-Li's father, once a first-rank official and a minister for 2 reigns, had been eradicated by Lu Qing after Chun-Li entered the palace. Yet, Chun-Li never resented Lu Qing. He had little affection for his family and felt his father's increasingly outrageous behavior in his later years deserved such an end. Lu Qing walked over to him, her smile as warm as the spring sun, stunningly beautiful. "Eliminating the Qin family was a gift from my father, allowing me to establish my authority as Empress." She took Chun-Li's hand, leading him to sit down. "But conquering the Man People's land is to remove a lingering worry for my father and a future threat for Daliao. It must be done." "It must be done," Chun-Li mused. "So your Majesty is willing to sacrifice General Li? Don't you have feelings for him?" Hearing this, Lu Qing released his hand. "You are soon to be my consort, yet you keep making me think of another man. Isn't that inappropriate?" The news of Li Song's death reached the capital a day before Daliao's army was set to arrive at the southern border and 5 days before Lu Qing's Empress consort ceremony. The Man People, angered by Daliao's military movements, had killed Li Song. The entire court of Daliao mourned, and Lu Qing was no exception. However, Daliao's army struck the Man People with a swift and overwhelming force. Within 3 days, they had taken nearly half of the Man People's territory. If eliminating the Qin family 2 years ago was a small step for Lu Qing to establish her authority, this victorious campaign against the Man People firmly secured her throne. This day had been 5 years in the making for Lu Qing. A female emperor who could rival any man, the old ministers no longer dared to use their seniority to challenge her in court. Li Song's body was never recovered. Only his blood-stained clothes were sent back to the capital. Lu Qing erected a cenotaph for him and posthumously honored him as the Remembrance General. On the day of the funeral, Lu Qing did not attend. She sat alone in her chamber, staring at a pot of wine, reminiscing about when she and Li Song first developed feelings for each other. Back then, she was still a princess, not yet an emperor. He was just a 5th-rank officer, not a general. On her 14th birthday, she halted the banquet's performances and demanded Li Song, who always outperformed her in ministers' lessons, to perform a sword dance for her. Initially meant to embarrass him, Lu Qing found herself mesmerized by his profile as he danced. Unable to resist, she grabbed a sword and joined him. It was in that moment, while his gaze ensnared her heart and he held her by the waist when she twisted her ankle, that she felt her first stirrings of affection. "Remembrance General," she murmured to herself, staring at the untouched wine. "I have been in love with you for a long time." The Empress's consort ceremony. As Lu Qing and her consort stood on the high platform, adorned in their ceremonial attire and receiving the homage of the court, she felt a firm squeeze on her hand. She returned the squeeze just as firmly, her eyes welling with tears. From their distance, the ministers couldn't clearly see the faces of the Empress and her consort, but Minister Zhua, kneeling with the others, raised his head and stared intently at the pair on the platform. After a while, a smile spread across his old face. "Minister Zhua is smiling," Lu Qing whispered to the person beside her. "Teacher is a crafty old fox. He must have figured out the truth long ago," the person beside her said, turning to her with eyes as deep as a pond. "Your Majesty, when Chun-Li left the palace, he complained that you had this plan all along but kept him in the dark." Lu Qing stuck out her tongue playfully and pinched Li Song's hand. "Actually, I didn't have a solid plan. I took a gamble. If provoking you to return proved you cared for me, I would follow through by having you captured and using that as a pretext to attack the Man People, then marrying you under the guise of being Chun-Li. If you really didn't come back, I might have actually gone ahead and made Chun-Li my consort. After all, she did quite admire Chun-Li." Upon hearing her words, Li Song frowned. "Then I suppose I should be wary of Chun-Li from now on." The ceremony was long and elaborate. Standing for so long, Lu Qing couldn't resist asking Li Song a question. "Do you resent me for taking away your military authority?" she asked, dropping the imperial "we." "I do," Li Song replied honestly, but then he smiled. "But I also understand that for an emperor, balancing power and affection is always difficult." From the moment he first saw Lu Qing in ministers was class, there had been no room in his heart or mind for anyone else. He could never forget that lesson when ministers were asked all the students a question: how should a ruler and their ministers interact? Everyone else gave lengthy, eloquent answers, but Lu Qing simply responded with two insightful words: seduce and provoke. The class had chuckled, dismissing her as a shallow girl, but only ministers were, and Li Song understood the depth of her answer. They recognized that the princess's future was bound to be extraordinary. To seduce meant to allure, to keep close yet distant, to draw towards oneself. To provoke meant to challenge, to push to extremes, to secure loyalty and survival. Reflecting on this, Li Song embraced Lu Qing's waist, his gaze full of affection. "The most extraordinary woman in the world is now my wife." He was content.